Dave and Clay, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Our pleasure. Yeah, happy to be here.
So we wanted to chat because we wanted to get into the business of product line diversification. You launched Sun King Spirits and have added to that quite a bit since then. You know, you have a new vodka coming out this year as a part of that line. And you're also going to be rolling out Sun King Hard Seltzer this year. So I wanted to kind of get into all of that. But first, I wanted to start with Sun King Spirits. What was the business plan at the outset of that?
The conversation started before Sun King even had a name. So when we were chatting with some of our business partners, chief among them Clay's father, I said, hey, if we do the brewing part well, you know, I see this momentum coming for craft distilling. So we should take a look at maybe getting in that game as well. And he looked at me and Clay and he goes, what the hell do we know about distilling? And I said, well, we're halfway there with beer. So all spirits start off as beer or wine, and then they get refined or distilled. So, you know, that's what's up.
Yeah.
We pulled my dad out of retirement at 70 to be the business mind behind the company. And he was with us for about 7 years, gave us kind of a crash course in entrepreneurship, and was really an instrumental part in helping us navigate the growth, because for so long, neither Dave or I could see the forest for the trees. But bringing him in, he was actually more of a spirits guy than a beer guy. So he kind of got excited about that aspect of it. And I think we started doing some legislative pushes in 2011, 2012 around some barrelage restrictions in our state. And through that, he got to know Nick Floyd up at Three Floyds, and they became close and really started talking about the spirit side of thing. And so I think it was 2012, my dad, Omar, and Nick got together and pushed the lobbying through to create the Indiana Artisan Distillers Permit. So we actually created the permit for it and the ability for a craft producer in the state to distill years before we ever actually got around to it. And actually, once we did it, we spent several years where Omar was like, when are we distilling? When are we distilling? When are we distilling? And Dave and I are like, whoa, take it easy, buddy. Like, we're not distilling it. Like, we've got a juggernaut here. We were growing 5,000 barrels a year at the time. And we're like, we really need to focus in on this, because this is what pays the bills. The spirits are something that we want to do, but we've got to find the right time to bring that in.
Yeah. So when did it become the right time? It was obvious. I see, 2018 in the timeline is when it officially kind of launched, but was it a part of, Sun King proper kind of like getting to a nice plateau where you thought, okay, now we can like breathe a little bit? Or is it just kind of like that still just kept growing and you just like, well, we got to do it sometime, and now we're just going to do it? I'm curious how it actually finally happened.
The opportunity came up when we were talking to a developer in a northern suburb called Carmel, Indiana, just north of us here from the mothership. And they were doing this whole sort of linear walking path. So we have this thing called the Monon Trail, which was an old rail line that is now, just a walking path and biking path. So he was, bought up a bunch of parcels of land and going to build some density, some housing, mixed development, and all that kind of good stuff. So his wife was a big fan of Sun King and really, really loved Osiris, which is, our flagship pale ale. She said, before you do anything, you should talk to the Sun King guys. So we set up a meeting and started to talk through what the development was going to be like and how we would be an integral part of that. And as we were going along, we're like, man, distillery, we don't want a giant behemoth of a distillery. We really want something small and manageable to put out some cool things. So we, said, hey, but we don't want to do a brewery here. We don't want it to be just a tap room. We want it to have its own feel and voice. And as we talked about some other things, it became clear that this is the right moment for the distillery.
Is it now kind of run as a separate entity? Because I'm just like wondering about how you manage like the different types of customers who would be interested in beer versus distilling, and just how you grow that brand versus.
So we run everything. I mean, overall, we run everything under the Sun King Brewing Company umbrella, and then we have 5 tap rooms now, with a 6th opening next week at our Indianapolis International Airport. We've expanded out into areas that we thought there were good opportunities in. Our first foray out was a small batch tap room, which is why we didn't want to make another small batch tap room when we did this caramel project, and kind of led to the distillery. At the end of the day, they're all tap rooms, and we focus on the overall customer experience. And then Dave leads the liquids projects and the distilling side, and our head distiller or lead distiller Meredith is up there. So we have an on-site distiller who's working with the staff on education all the time, just like we've got an on-site brewer at our small batch brewery, or when you're at our downtown location, you've got people around. So a lot of it's about education. It's about education about the beers, and then kind of moving forward as we roll out spirits education on those fronts.
Yeah, so we took the spirit side once we had that going on, and backfilled all of our other locations with that. So we had to get special licenses for the city or for the state of Indiana. It's a 3-way license that allows you to have spirit sales at the same time. So so once we established the distillery and we had the spirit side, we were seeing some trends as far as our portfolio or mix of sales products. Beer was still outselling spirits, but it was slowly starting to gain some more traction and momentum. And we thought, okay, there's a whole group of people out there, weird as they may be, that don't love beer, but really just like spirits. So let's, backfill now all of our locations with those special licenses that, cost anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a piece, and, start picking them off one by one, then importing our spirits program into the tap rooms. So Carmel is still led by a distillery. There is a distillery in the building. It's designed around it to be kind of the showpiece of that, but the spirits go everywhere.
Do you sell them anywhere else, like at retail or liquor stores?
We really did design the distillery. People are always like, oh, and when you grow, and we're like, we're not. Like it's like we built a purpose-built small scale production system. And I mean, it's really
locked in the size that it can be, which is great.
The building can't get any bigger. The equipment can't get any bigger. And I think, one of the things we learned from Sun King is we grossly underestimated the demand for local beer when we launched 11 plus years ago. And, we've chased the growth, and it's been organic, and people have wanted more and more of our beer, but we just continued pushing it. And for this, it was more of an opportunity for us to continue to create and launch new products and develop, things. And, Dave was saying, you got 4 people in a car going out somewhere, odds are one of them doesn't drink beer. And if you don't have something other than beer, that's when tap rooms start to miss out. So, the spirits portfolio has allowed us to grow, and we have the ability, we move it between all of our tap rooms. So basically at this point, you can come in and get Sun King spirits at Sun King. However, our limited production capacity led us to an issue because the number one spirit we sell is vodka. And if we made vodka there, all we would ever make is vodka. So we would be unable to make any of the fun stuff. So this guy here, the Sun King vodka, that comes out in the next week. This is part of a partnership with West Fork Whiskey, who makes fantastic whiskey products and barrel-aged products, but they have capacity but didn't want to have their own clear spirits brand. So through the friendship we developed over doing some barrel-aged projects and other things with them, we were talking one day and they asked us some of the same questions about growth and what we do. And we're like, hey, we can't. And we're looking at these different things, and they're like, what if we got together and did a collaborative product? And vodka's your best seller, so why don't we make vodka for you? So
do you feel like has the growth of the spirits side, like maybe what you were thinking at the outset in 2018, or like exceeded that? I guess, have you adjusted your expectations, and what have you learned along the way?
Well, we've had a couple of stumbling blocks along the way. We were promised to have certain equipment in, and it was delayed by almost a year. Then our distiller that was there decided to part ways with us, so then we had to bring in a new person and all that. So we really haven't even gotten full production and everything going on. Just now we're getting to that point. But back to the vodka, like, man, that would be all that we would be making in the space. And as a brewer and somebody who's, people who are very creative, while vodka is a lovely beverage that people use, one of the things that I've always jokingly said about vodka is, hell no, I'm never going to make it, because you're taking something that is, purposeful, it's grain of some kind and has flavor and taste, and then you process it to the point where it's pure ethanol, and then I hand it to you, and then you put something back in it to make it taste like something again. So that hurts my little brewer's heart, not to, hey, this is flavor, and this is why I want you to try it. So I don't have to make vodka, but we have vodka.
Well, so then, next comes hard seltzers. Is it officially out in stores now? I see that. That looks beautiful. I really like the colors and logo you use there. It's like a cool.
Thanks. So we have an in-house art team. So we've got 3 folks. We've got a videographer. We've got a art director who kind of works the flow, and he's a self-proclaimed Photoshop hack. And then we have a graphic designer. But between them and our marketing team, and we just kind of got together, and with launching hard seltzer, it's a different product. We think it attracts kind of a different customer. And so we wanted it to still feel like Sun King, but we also wanted to take the brand in a new direction and really kind of appeal to a broader audience. So when our artists came up with kind of this color spectrum and everything, we all looked at it. We're like, wow, yes.
Yeah. So you kind of were getting in the territory I was wondering is if the hard seltzer is just something you feel like you needed to have now because it's like what is maybe like on trend, or it's like we're maybe losing some customers because of this and we need to get them back, or is it totally like I'm sitting this on top of what we already have and try to expand from where we're at?
I think it's a multiple of those things. Just pooling our, taking the temperature of our own employees and having that conversation, I'll have a couple of beers, but I'll also have a couple of hard seltzers on the weekend. So people that work for a brewery who have unfettered access to beer are also migrating toward that as well. So we'd be idiots not to take a look at that as a trend and then say, what expression do we have that's part of that? And as we all know, it's hockey stick growth presently, and it looks that way for the next several years. So I think what we discovered about ourselves when we went into spirits is we're really good at fermenting things. So hard seltzers, another thing that's fermented. So we're just taking our expertise or what we feel is a strength internally and then adding that to other things that consumers want.
What do you think matters to the seltzer drinker or customer? And like, is there a quality barometer for when it comes to seltzers? Because like, I like, I'm drinking seltzers, but it's like in a certain way, I almost wonder like, are they just kind of like, yeah, these are fine. This is a seltzer. I guess, how did you prepare? No, this is the one that's going to be ours, other than like the really cool, color combo and branding and stuff you have.
We spent about 9 months R&Ding various yeast profiles, what the sugar source is going to be and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted it to be, imagine that if you had like Spindrift or LaCroix and it also made you feel happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a pretty exhaustive search as well for the flavor extracts that we were using. And we got them from dozens and dozens of companies, and they all have various different kind of flavor components, but we really kind of worked through to find ones that we thought tasted authentic and that were really good. And then we have a pretty robust sensory panel that runs Monday through Thursday, where folks run through double-blind panels. And so we did seltzer tastings and seltzer panels. And then once we got into flavorings, we had people come in and we did titrations on flavorings and really tried to figure out. We took a barometer of a large section of people and encouraged folks who maybe don't even normally participate in sensory, coming from offices or art or wherever else, to come in and try it and get as many kind of opinions as possible. So we took a very collaborative approach to really dialing these products in and getting them to a point where we're like, yeah, this is really what we want, and we feel like this is something we want to stamp Sun King on.
Is this going to be throughout your distribution footprint?
It's Indiana only right now. I mean, it's one of those things like our brands tend to get pulled places rather than us pushing them places. So again, like Orange Vanilla Sunlight was something that we had on the docket. Our brand manager at our largest distributor said, hey, I think you should do a variant on Sunlight Cream Ale. And we're like, come on. And so we actually tried them out in our tap rooms, and we did an orange vanilla one, and it went crazy. It sold in a day, and the rest of them were on tap for 3 or 4 days. So we just really started to dial this in, and it was ready to go pre-COVID. And then COVID hit, and we're like, well, do we launch a new product or we just shelf it? And we're like, you know what? Let's just launch it. And so we launched it, and this had huge pull through social media was going crazy on it. And like, we get people in Kentucky and in Chicago or Illinois and Florida who are like, do we get it? Do we get it? And we're like, right now it's only available in Indiana. Please ask your retailer or, reach out to this distributor. So it's pulled through to Chicago. Kentucky just picked it up on a new order coming through. I think it's moving to Florida now. So we're fortunate with an engaged social media presence. And, ever since we started, really, we try to have people who love our brands pull our brands through from the outside rather than go into our distributors and go, you're going to sell 10,000 case equivalents of orange vanilla sunlight cream ale this year.
As you have gone along this journey and really done your homework and diversified in all these different ways, I feel like you've done that very smartly. I'm just, anything that pops out in your head is like, oh, I wish someone would have told me this going into it, or just something you've learned along the way you'd like to impart some wisdom.
Doing your due diligence really is first and foremost, because if you don't have that, what do you have to build off of? So that's our strong foundation. And when we discovered that fermentation was the thing that we did well, then that made sense for any other product that we have coming out on that front, I would say. And then also be brave. It's a weird world out there, but people who are engaged in your brand also want to see something new. They're sitting at home too, and they're like, damn, I just wish somebody would take my mind off of the chaos in the world around us. And you can do that with some new product launches. So every product launch that we've had, back to the orange vanilla cream ale, it jumped up to be our number 2 SKU presently.
Yeah, and I would say be true to yourself. We from the very beginning have kind of set out, we wanted to create new beers. When we started Sun King, we wanted to make as many seasonal and specialty beers as possible because we came from brew pubs where we made the same beers day in and day out. So we spent a decade doing that. And so coming over here, we wanted to create new products, and we've had different times where capacity constraints have cut in on that, but we've always kind of pushed forward to try to do that. And, we have a very steadfast rule that anything that leaves here has to meet our specifications and fit our standards, and has to be what we feel really great. There are plenty of people out here who aren't going to love everything that we do, but there's a lot of people who are going to love it. So follow your heart, do the thing that you love, be true to yourself, and put passion and genuine intent in it. And we believe that somehow can manifest through and makes for great products. And if you've got great products, then the rest is easy. Okay, maybe not so easy.
That I feel like that was a terrific note to end on. So I'll stop things there. So anyway, thanks Dave and Clay for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks, Chris.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks.